Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game 4 of Adepticon here on Master Site. We got another great game for you. So this game, I'm going to be playing against Kris DeGrow, and he is playing Empire of Dust. So let's go ahead, go over his list, and then we'll jump right into it for you. So he has a horde of enslaved guardian archers, two hordes of enslaved guardians, a revenant cav troop with the skirmisher's boots, a revenant chariot legion with curse bows and J boots. He has the soul snare, undead worm, monolith. He has a pharaoh on foot with the wings of honey maze, and he took host shadow beast 3 on him. He has a Revenant Champ mounted with Mace of Crushing and Surge 5. And he has Isle of Shobik, as well as a Reanimated Behemoth. So total of 12 units and 17 unit strength. So quite low, both drops and especially unit strength. Typically even in 12 drops, people break 20 unit strength. So he's definitely going very elite, and Empire Dust is absolutely one of those armies that you can do it with. So let's go ahead and take a look at the picture. So here's Kris himself, and here's our board. So scenario we were playing was Pillage. And one of the unique things, so they had a set number of tokens for all of these scenarios. There was no random rolls. Typically, when there's a set number, you go off the highest possible value. And we did that for push, but in Pillage, we only had 5 tokens, which is the lowest possible value, I believe. So, yeah, quite interesting, and it definitely favors Kris in this particular matchup. If there were 2 more tokens out here that he would need to hold with his 12 units, but he has 2 individuals and a war machine, so he only has 9 scoring units possible on 7 potential tokens. This would have been a much more advantageous to me, but nonetheless, we have 5 tokens. They are these mats here. And let's go ahead and take a look at terrain. So we have a little pond, so I believe it's flat over here on the left, with a hill and building. And there's a forest adjacent to this hill. We have a field, so again, another flat or possibly height 1 difficult. I forget the exact rules for this one here on this tournament. Another forest adjacent to the hill. And then a building with L-shaped obstacles coming out of it. So deployment-wise, Kris over here went with his troop of RevCav, his RevCav characters behind it, his Soul Snare, Legion of Chariots. He has his Flying Pharaoh here. He has both Enslaved Guardians here. In the center is Shobik, and right behind Shobik is the Undead Worm. Behind all of this, he has his Monolith. He then has his Enslaved Guardian Archers in the forest, and he has a Behemoth out on the right flank. So for me here, we can't quite see it, but I have both my lightning bolt guys, Mind Screeches on the far left, horde of scarecrows. I have the Horror Riftweaver and a regiment of Soul Flares behind them. I have Butcher Flesh Ripper here, then Big Boy, Shadow Hulk, Butcher Flesh Ripper, the triple stack of Scarecrows, Soul Flares, Reapers, and then I already started moving a little bit, but we had the Scarecrows, Soul Flares combo with flanked by a Butcher, And then on the far right, I put the last horde of scarecrows on this token behind the building. I expect that they'll probably sit there the whole game. And I did also put my Ronnie the Bard over here. And then the last piece I moved up already, but I had a Dread Fiend on the right flank. So, yeah. So initial thoughts here is this left flank is rather fragile, quite weak. The Legions have a high nerve, but it's defense 4. The Troop does not have a high nerve, defense 5. There's only 2 units with unit strength, and there's 2 tokens on this side of the board. And I felt like this building effectively cut off this side of the board. So initially, I'm looking at this saying, if I win the left flank, that's 2 tokens, and I already have 1 way back here for 3, so I should win the game here. But I can't commit everything, so I have to push up in the center here as well to force him to commit towards the center token. Otherwise, he could potentially redeploy some of his heavy hitters out here. So going into it, that was the plan. And then I had a plan with this Dread Fiend here, which is abuse the fact that this behemoth is on a chariot base. So effectively, we'll see this in the game, but if I get beside him 1 inch away, he can't charge me and he can't surge into me because he's on a chariot base, so he's going to become closer to me if he turns to try and face me. So the Dread Fiend's the best unit in my army to do that because he's fast and on a small enough base to get there. But I absolutely should have utilized his Hex versus that utility and used the Hex over on the left flank. I play EoD. The Soul Snare's a pain in the ass. I should have really saw this coming and been able to shut down the Soul Snare. And the Soul Snare doesn't have anything it can hide behind over here because I'm height 4. Any of his units over here are height 3. There's no forest. There's nothing that the Soul Snare is going to be able to do once I get the Hex rolling with this unit. So this is a major mistake in deployment, and it's not like I put down the Dread Fiend early. I put it down as one of my last drops. I just severely misplayed that and should realize how valuable it is to shut down this Soul Snare. So even on the back foot off the starting gate here, I feel still very comfortable knowing that I feel confident that these left 2 tokens should be in my control with my game plan, and then the middle one and even the top right one are going to be contested and forcing him to commit units towards them. So a little bit closer look up of his lineup here. And then one thing for Kris here that I like to do personally, it doesn't really matter against me because I don't have any shooting, but I like to deploy my Guardian Archers behind the forest and then surge them into the forest first turn. It helps against shooting lists, but like I said, I don't have much shooting. I could have utilized my Lightning Bolt to try and take some or pick off some damage here because he didn't know where those were going as of yet, but either way, it doesn't matter in this particular instance. So, and then my movement here, and haven't moved yet, so let's move. So just push up as normal in most cases here. So effectively with this Butcher and the positioning of my Shadow Hulk, I'm making it to where I can go either direction. I kind of feel like if he comes forward in the center and he gives me an opportunity to flank, I'm going to do that with the Shadow Hulk. But if he doesn't, then I'm probably going to just push my advantage on the left and guarantee that I win that side by bringing over the big hammer. So shooting, I do 4 wounds to the soul snare, but anybody that's played the soul snare knows how that's going to work. And then it is Kris's movement, and yes, he did move. So he shambled forward a little bit, just repositioned on the left, moved this guy forward, so not very aggressive at all, perfectly fine. I guess it also should be said, another thing in reflection, looking back at this game, I won the option for turn 1 or turn 2. I chose turn 1. Realistically, turn 2 would have been much more valuable for me for multiple reasons. One, he's not very fast, and he doesn't have a huge shooting threat. His soul snare wouldn't have been able to shoot first turn. And 2, I have Wind Blast and the ability to then jump on tokens at the very bottom of the turn, which I should have considered that and used that towards my advantage here. So another opportunity to play this better here. So he flies his Pharaoh over here, sitting on top of the hill. He's just wanting to get into my back lines and do some stuff. But this forest here is going to block his ability to see towards the center, so it's not terribly threatening. And that's his positioning here and over there. So he shoots, does enough wounds to heal himself back. I think he shoots at the horde there. And I think he used his curse bows, and he did like 2 wounds to a Butcher Flesh Ripper, which is pretty impressive with 10 shots against stealthy defense 5. So either way, nothing too major. And this is my movement for turn 2, so a little closer up here. I go ahead, just advance on the left, and then I position this Butcher on the hill in such a way that he cannot see anything over on the left flank here with his flyer. And again, he can't see to the right. He might be able to see the Shadow Hulk, but okay, go ahead. And he can see a Butcher Flesh Ripper over here. Again, okay, go ahead. And this was the Butcher with the Torque of Dissonance, and I stole his Host Shadow Beast for this turn. So basically just saying, if you want to get some value out of him, start getting value out of him, you gotta go into some unpleasant charges. My center, I push forward here. Again, I started already running that Butcher that was in the center over to here. I want to apply some pressure, and that Shadow Hulk is still, he's sitting outside of charge range of everything over here, except for the dragon. If the dragon wants to take a front charge, come on in. I'll smack him around all day. But yeah, still the same idea. If he comes and hits the scarecrows here, I'm fine with that. I have flank options with the big boy. And then on the right, I did a little something tricky here. I went ahead and just exposed a flank, and his guardians are in range, and they absolutely can take that. I did make a mistake, though, and I just didn't even move this Butcher Flesh Ripper. I absolutely should have moved him. And I intended to move him, but it was too late by the time I realized that I hadn't moved him. So, but if I were to have moved him, I would have moved him just past the forest on this side, because my goal is I'm going to Wind Blast this unit outside of the forest. So it would have been quite a long ways for him to run forward and get surges into the Butcher's flank. But again, I'm abusing this unit over here, as we can see now, because I ran my Dread Fiend up, so his only option is to go forward now. He cannot turn, so by the time he goes forward and clears me, he only gets a 90-degree pivot. He can't get a surge charge into me, so I effectively am pushing him off this token with his prior positioning here, and going to force him to come over here with some higher unit strength than just even a single monster at this point, because I can dance around this thing all day. But it would have been even better if this Butcher was about right here, because again, by the time he pushes forward and pivots, he would not have been able to draw a straight perpendicular line across to hit the butcher, and that would have been the ideal goal. And then I have 2 unit strength over here with this token, threatening that this one's supposed to be easy for him. Anyway, so back over to the left. This is after shooting. Lightning bolt damage isn't going to stick, so I figure, what the hell, let's wind blast. So one of the big things, if we go back just a little bit here, is I did expose a front charge from this horse character to these guys here. There is not enough room for the regiment or the troop to fit in between these 2 units, so they would not be able to charge, but the individual could. But I had Wind Blast here and these 2, so I have Wind Blast 17. I needed to push him back like 5 inches, I think it was, in order to prevent the charge to the Soul Flares. So I did, and I think I pushed him back like 8 inches or maybe even more, but either way, he's not charging me this turn, so we go to Kris's turn 2, I believe it is. And Kris decides to go ahead and take the bait over here on the right, and he's just sitting still on the left still, so backs up a little bit in the middle. So his flyer boy comes over here, no big surprise. Again, he doesn't really do much. He backs up the soul snare. He sidesteps just to block off charges to it. Yep. And then he does turn the dragon to face this direction. And he takes a double charge the front and the flank here. Again, this is taking him away from the center token, which I feel like was the valuable play at this point. And yeah, so he kills it. He kills the Butcher Flesh Ripper, which isn't terribly uncommon, but I think he hit 9 out of his 10 attacks and did 9 out of his 9 wounds. So it was just one of those where it's like, all right, it's going to be one of those games. And so he kills, he turns to face here with everything. None of this stuff is in front arc of sight. So, yeah, perfectly fine. This is doing what I wanted to do. And again, this is turn 2 for Kris, and he's been utilizing his time quite a bit, making sure that he's positioning the right ways and the ways he wants. I should say these guys did get wind blasted past the hill, and now they're just turning and shooting. I think this turn they do something like 2 or 3 wounds with shooting as well with their pot shots, and it's just one of those where it's like, man, it's frustrating that some of these things are happening, because they could matter later on. So then it is my turn 3, so I push forward aggressively and I start the boxing out. So the whole goal here is I'm pushing forward with the scarecrows. I'm boxing out so that way I can start wind blasting, and then I'll probably use these guys as a sacrificial screen just to maintain the center. So my goal is going in here. I'm hindered on a lot of things. I'm probably not going to pop anything this turn, but get some wounds, and then I have a second wave with multiple units more coming in over here. So that's my goal, is to kill this, not this turn, but maybe next turn. Have this secured so that in 2 more turns, by turn 6, I should have some reinforcements from the left flank coming over. Even though it's not needed for me to hold this token, because I would have these 2. So, and I already have this one forcing him to come over there. So realistically, I'm, forcing him to really divide up his force, and with him taking this charge, I felt very confident at this point that the scenario was well in my control. So the charge is on the left. Due to positioning and whatnot, I would rather have double charged the smaller unit, but alas, this is how I had to end up the charge. And then on the right, so I decide these soul flares aren't going to do anything to a defense 6, and then these guys, I don't even know if they could fit. I don't even really want to fit, so I decided what's better than distracting him once, but let's do it again. So I just run further over to the right flank, saying, well, if you kill me, you're going to be about 20 inches away, 15 inches away from the token that we need to control at the end of the game. So I'll go ahead and take that. So nothing happens with shooting or combats. I guess I should go over to the left. So again, he positioned his individual here. I just create a wall with my Mind Screeches, so his only viable charge options are one of these Mind Screeches or the Shadow Hulk here, you can see. So again, I just want to protect some of my more fragile, more valuable units that have already taken a little bit of damage even, so. And so Kris's turn. So, yep, he goes after this unit here. Yeah, it's kind of what I wanted, so. And so let's get a closer look. So he flanks and rear charges. And then in the center, he charges his horde. On the left, he countercharges the horde here, and then he countercharges the soul flares, which already have like 3 wounds on them from a soul snare shot. So he decides to shoot into the horde. Because he wants some easy healing onto his chariots, which I believe are up to like 6 or 7 wounds at this point. But he doesn't do terribly well this particular turn. I think he only does like 1 or 2 wounds. Either way, after life leech and everything, his horde gets down to 4 wounds left. But the amazing thing is, even though my horde only had 4, maybe 5 or 6 wounds after soul snare attacks, is Kris does 15 hits and 14 wounds to the horde, and just picks them up. So, wow, yep, it's definitely one of those games. But realistically, at this point, I'd see that and I'm like, oh, well, I was expecting that horde to be there. I might have to wait an extra turn to get some of these bigger hitters in. Now it's just clear, cool run-ins. Just get in there, boys. So, and then he does do a couple wounds here. Yeah, I think I'm up to 7 now. So he does like 3 wounds without his thunderous charge back at me. And he wavers me, so unfortunate, but it happens. And then he comes into the Mind Screech. Sounds good. And then over on the right, he kills and reforms like so. So again, this was Kris's turn 3, I believe. Yeah, that sounds right. And so my turn 4, so let's go. Let me back up one thing here. So one of the things that I moved in position when I ran these scarecrows forward, this guy ran forward. I wanted to give myself options with his charge arc and whatnot. One of the things that I looked at and I was intending to do is I wanted this butcher to be able to see these guys when they inevitably come into the horde. And it was tight. I usually play it tight, but I didn't communicate it very well, I guess, because when I went to declare the charge, Kris said that I didn't have that angle. So, you know, we kind of talked about it in the end, did a 4-up. I missed the 4-up option. So the intent of getting these guys in combat on multiple fronts just wasn't happening, which is unfortunate at this point here, because that's really one of the big reasons why I made this particular play here. So anyway, back to where we were. So this is what the board looks like after my turn 4 movement. So on the left, I just stay still here. I countercharge with the Mind Screech, trying to just sit this guy down by doing a wound, shut off the host Shadow Beast stuff, and then I move this Mind Screech up, and I triple charge the Chariot Legion. So at this point, the Chariot Legion has 4 wounds on it, and with this charge, it's pretty swingy, but with D6 from the big boy, D6 from the Horror Riftweaver. But in the end, after doing some quick math, I realized it was going to be like 4s or 5s twice to kill it with all this. So I felt pretty confident. This Butcher could have charged in as well, but I felt it was more important for him to get better positioning over here at this point. So yeah, I go ahead and commit there on the left. We're just countercharging here in the center, and we're just playing, keep away in the back right over here. So effectively staying out of 12 inches of his Guardian Archers up here, which just keep walking forward and doing some pluck shots at me, which he's getting wounds through. It's a little annoying. But my goal is he's going to have to come this way anyway. So once he does, this is turn 4, so 5, 6, I had the speed and ability to get to the center token with this guy. So that's kind of the intent at this point. So you'll notice I didn't take picture between my turn 4 and his turn 4. Unfortunately, I was just kind of... Again, it's one of those games. I rolled so bad for this Chariot Legion up here. I bounced off of them. Averages would have been closer to like 11 or 12 wounds, and they already had 4 on them, and I have a Dread Bubble there. So again, we're looking at 4s or 5s twice was the goal. And I put 8 wounds on them, so... roll absolutely horribly. I needed a 8 or 9 twice then, didn't get it. And now, after that happens, it's just not looking too great for me. Because he brings in the worm in the flank. He brings in the character, which I failed to ground. He countercharges with the horde. He shoots the Soul Snare into it as well. So he's going all out to take out the Shadow Hulk at this point, which he needs all of that to reliably kill it. That's for sure. The only thing that possibly saves me is hindered charge, but the host Shadow Beast attacks are the ones that hurt, and they don't really care about it. So. And then over on the right here, he positions like so. He wants to stay out of charge range here, so he keeps moving them that way. I wind blasted him the last turn, so now he moves forward and he surges it forward. And another note to mention, good play by Kris here, is he moved his monolith up in such a way that I would not, this turn I would have, or this previous turn, I would have double charged with the troop and the horde, and the horde would just simply slide over. But because of this positioning, I'm not able to make enough room, so definitely well played there. The left flank, the troop kills off my Soul Flares, which, after being wavered, that's definitely expected. He kills the Shadow Hulk, which, with everything that was into it, that's pretty well expected at this point too. And he kills this horde and runs forward, and we're in the same situation where this this guy's looking at nothing because he was able to overrun enough to where I can't see him. And I had to position this guy in this way to prevent the surge flank shenanigans. Realistically, I was banking on killing the chariots, and the Shadow Hulk would have turned this way anyway. So I probably didn't need to do that, but you know, at this point, just playing a little sloppy. Made several mistakes up to this point, and just kind of keep making more and more. But we're gonna play on. So I'm, you know, trying to break this unit. If I break this unit, I still have play for the center token. I'm trying to hold this token here, so it's not 100% over. There's still possibilities. So I go ahead, and this is my movement here for turn 5. And so I go ahead and countercharge. At this point, I'm not killing the horde because he's healed it, and I don't have enough attacks and all that stuff, so I just try to go after the individual. If I possibly kill the individual, I can overrun into the damaged Rev troop. So long shots, but you know. And then in the center, again, just really sticking to the plan. Unfortunately, we weren't able to take out this unit that was, you know, kind of a vital part of that plan, but I'm blocking up 2 units for 1 this turn, so the Enslaved Guardians being behind Shobik, they cannot draw line of sight to my Soul Flares. So this charge here is only going to be able to be countered by Shobik, and if he wants to turn around and surge into the rear, he can definitely go ahead and do that, but he needs to get to the center. So. And then we're bringing this guy back. So, but combat-wise, does not go well here. I think I do 2 wounds is all. I don't really care what I do to Shobik at this point. It's not meant to kill him. So, and then over here, I had charged the Mind Screech in just to try and ground this guy so that the other Mind Screech could live and hold the token over there. Yeah, so Kris's turn 5, I believe, at this point, and he's running low on clock, but I told him we'll just, you know, play out the turn even if we clock out. So that's what I would prefer to do instead of having somebody roll a bunch of dice quickly and not, you know, have a clear view of if they were hits or misses or whatnot. So it just avoids some of those issues. So. But he brings his character in over here to try and get Host Shadow Beast. I think he actually fails Host Shadow Beast this turn, so I'm looking at him like, oh, got a shot. But realistically, the writing's on the wall at this point. So, and then so he kills the Horror Rift Weaver. He does not kill that. He kills the troop and turns around. And he wavers the Mind Screech. And he wavers the Soul Flares as well. And then turn 6, I didn't have much of anything to do, so this is bottom 6 after the game's all said and done. But in the end, I didn't get to kill anything. He was able to finish that off. Finish this off. He had 4 tokens in the end. Which just feels so wrong looking at it, you know, from turn 2 and turn 3 even. It's like, oh man, I just felt really confident in this one, but sometimes the plans don't work out and it all comes crumbling down. So in the end, I definitely lost the game, and I actually got 0 kill points. So I didn't kill a single thing, which is just funny to me. Because I look at the list, list versus list matchup. Like, I feel like a 12 drop list just should not be able to compete against this 16 drops, all unit strengths. I practically have twice as many units with unit strength than he does. So scenarios should just be an extreme uphill battle for the EoD most of the time. And I do know that Kris went on to play the winner of the event, Travis Tim, in his next game in Dominate, and Travis has close to 30 unit strength that he can put in the Dominate circle, and Kris had 17. So it's just gonna be really hard. I feel like with the 17 unit strength army to compete, but Kris got 4 wins. First 4 games here, so props to him. He's definitely making it work. I definitely want a rematch. I feel like I should be able to take this one out, but it wasn't meant to be for this one. So, but Kris, great game. Pleasure playing you. You definitely play very well, play very precise. So happy to see you again, hopefully in the future here. So in the end, I believe it was just 5 points for the loss, and I kept my Ronnie alive, so I got a 6-point loss in all. So so that's game 4, but we'll have game 5 out here in the next day or two, and that will be wrapping up our Adepticon. So appreciate everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.